The rain had not stopped for 3 days, and on the fourth morning, an 11-year-old girl named Renly Calloway stood outside the glass doors of the city's most expensive restaurant, staring at a woman she did not recognize, but whose eyes made her chest ache in a way she could not explain. She did not know that the woman behind that glass, dressed in a charcoal coat and sipping coffee from a porcelain cup, was the mother who had been searching for her for 7 long years. She only knew that her stomach was empty, her shoes were soaked through, and the smell of buttered bread, drifting from the restaurant's vents, was the closest thing to comfort she had felt in days. Before we go further into Renly's story, if you believe in kindness and second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when we least expect them, please take a moment to like this video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories so you never miss a story like this one. Now let's step back into that rainy morning and see how a simple bowl of leftovers would change 2 lives forever. Renly had been living on the streets of Ashford City for almost a year. She did not remember much about her life before the shelter fire that had separated her from her mother when she was 4 years old. The chaos of that night was a blur of smoke, sirens, and strangers, hands pulling her away from a woman who had been screaming her name. She remembered only fragments after that: a foster home that did not want her, a group home that closed its doors, and finally the cold reality of sleeping under the awning of a closed bakery with a blanket she had found in a donation bin. She had learned to survive by watching people, learning which restaurants left food behind, which doors opened kindly, and which ones slammed shut without a second glance. That morning, hunger had pushed her further than usual. She had wandered toward Le Chateau Doré, a restaurant so elegant that the doorman wore white gloves, a place she normally avoided because security always chased her off before she could even ask. But the rain had thinned the crowds, and desperation made her brave. Through the window, she saw a woman sitting alone at a corner table, her plate barely touched, a look of quiet sorrow on her face that seemed almost as heavy as Renly's own hunger. Something about the woman's stillness made Renly's feet carry her forward before her fear could stop her. The woman's name was Adeline Whitmore, and she was, in fact, one of the wealthiest women in Ashford City, the founder of a shipping empire she had built from nothing, after losing everything that mattered to her in a single tragic night. 7 years ago, a fire had torn through the small, transitional shelter she had been staying in with her daughter while she rebuilt her life after leaving an abusive marriage. In the panic, a stranger had grabbed her daughter to carry her to safety, and in the crushing crowd outside, Adeline had lost sight of her. She searched hospitals, shelters, and orphanages for months, then years, spending nearly her entire fortune on private investigators, never stopping, never remarrying, never truly living, because a part of her heart had stayed behind in that burning building, calling her daughter's name. When Renly approached her table that morning, soaked and trembling, and quietly asked if she could have the food that was going to be thrown away, Adeline looked up, and for a moment, the world seemed to tilt. There was something in the child's eyes, a particular shade of hazel flecked with gold, that struck her like lightning. She had seen those eyes every night in her dreams for 7 years. She told herself it was grief playing tricks on her. That grief had done this before, made her see her daughter in 100 strangers' faces over the years. But she could not look away. Instead of simply handing over the leftovers, Adeline asked the girl to sit down, and though Renly hesitated, hunger and something warm in the woman's voice convinced her. Adeline ordered a fresh plate instead of offering scraps, and as Renly ate, Adeline asked her gentle questions, careful not to frighten her away. She learned the girl's name was Renly, that she did not know her last name, that she had lived on the streets for a long time, and that she remembered almost nothing from before the fire, except a lullaby her mother used to hum and the smell of lavender soap. Adeline's hands began to shake. That lullaby had been hers, a tune she had made up herself and sung every night before bed. She asked very carefully if Renly could hum it, and when the girl did, quietly and imperfectly, Adeline had to press a napkin to her mouth to keep from sobbing in front of the entire restaurant. It was not proof, not yet, but it was enough to make her heart pound, with a hope she had not allowed herself to feel in years. She did not tell Renly who she suspected she might be. Afraid of frightening the child her being wrong and shattering her own heart all over again. Instead, she offered her a warm place to stay for the night. A real bed, a hot shower, and the promise of breakfast in the morning. Renly, wary from years of broken promises and unkind strangers, almost refused, but something about Adeline's eyes, the way they seemed to look at her like she was already precious, made her nod slowly. That night in the guest room of Adeline's grand but quiet home, Adeline sat outside the door long after Renly had fallen asleep, staring at old photographs of her daughter as a toddler, comparing the faint birthmark behind the ear in the photograph to the one she had glimpsed while brushing tangles from Renly's hair. Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone and called a private investigator she had worked with for years, begging him to run an emergency DNA test the moment the sun rose. The following 2 days felt like the longest of Adeline's life. She busied herself buying Renly clothes, enrolling her temporarily in a local clinic for a checkup, and trying to give the girl a taste of stability without revealing the storm of hope and fear raging inside her. Renly, for her part, began to feel something she had not felt in years. Safety. She found herself laughing at Adeline's clumsy attempts to braid her hair, and one evening, without realizing it, she called her mama. For a fleeting second before catching herself and apologizing, embarrassed, Adeline had to leave the room to cry in the hallway, overwhelmed by a word she had waited 7 years to hear. When the results finally came back, the investigator's voice on the phone was steady, but Adeline's world shattered and rebuilt itself in the same instant. It was a match. Renly Calloway, the barefoot girl who had asked a stranger for her leftovers, was truly her daughter, the child she had never stopped searching for, the child she had never stopped loving even when hope had all but disappeared. Adeline walked to Renly's room that evening with tears she no longer tried to hide, knelt beside the bed and gently explained everything. The fire, the years of searching, the lullaby, and now finally the truth. Renly sat frozen for a long moment, her mind struggling to piece together fragmented memories with this overwhelming revelation, until something inside her simply clicked into place. Like a lock finally finding its key, she threw her arms around Adeline and sobbed into her shoulder, repeating the word mama over and over, no longer catching herself, no longer afraid. In the weeks that followed, Adeline did not simply give Renly a home. She gave her a childhood she had been robbed of, filled with warmth, laughter, and safety. But Renly, having lived on the streets, and having seen firsthand the desperation of children like herself, asked her mother if they could help others too. Adeline, moved by her daughter's compassion despite everything she had endured, established a foundation in Renly's name dedicated to sheltering and reuniting lost and homeless children with their families, ensuring that no other mother would have to spend 7 years searching, and no other child would have to beg for leftovers just to survive another day. If this story touched your heart even a little, please consider liking this video and leaving a comment letting us know what moment moved you the most. Your support means more than you know, and it helps stories like Renly and Adeline's reach more people who need a little hope today. And before we close this chapter, we have a special request just for you. If you believe every lost child deserves to be found, and every mother's love deserves a second chance, type the words "reunited by love" in the comments below. Let it be a small prayer for every family still searching for each other somewhere out there in the world. In the end, Renly Calloway learned that sometimes the very stranger you are too, afraid to approach, might be the one who has been searching for you all along. And Adeline Whitmore learned that hope, no matter how faint, is never truly lost as long as you refuse to stop believing. Together they proved that even after the darkest storms, kindness has a way of leading us home.